Hello, everybody, and welcome to the December 18th, 2018 edition of the Ephrom Josine Show. I am your host, Ephrom Josine. Anyway, Michael Flynn recently, or actually today, is in the process of being convicted because he lied under oath. What did he lie about? Having meetings with the Russian government. In case you don't remember Michael Flynn, he was the National Security Advisor for a month under Donald Trump. In fact, he was his first national security advisor. So let's just go down the list at this point. We have, so far, Jeff Sessions, Donald Trump Jr., Michael Cohen, and a few others. And now Michael Flynn, one of the first members of the cabinet, as well as someone who campaigned in 2016 for the president. He actually was a swing voter in this, might I add, considering how he is still a registered Democrat to this day. He met with Russia and lied about it. Of course. Just of course. Why wouldn't he at this point? Here's my question. If nothing is happening in these meetings, as the Republican Party keeps claiming, why do they feel the need to keep lying about it? This is at least the fourth person in the administration who has been proven to have lied about having meetings. Now, all of a sudden, this matters? At what point do these people say maybe something is going on? And I think I know the answer, and it's more than likely never. Anyway, there was an image from a new PragerU video going around yesterday, which, on a side note, you just gotta love how fast things spread. I mean, the PragerU video came out yesterday, and already people were making fun of it. That's how bad it was. Just a picture of Adolf Hitler with the words next to him, Hitler is not a nationalist. These were the words spoken by Yorman Harazai, an Israeli philosopher who has written The Virtue of Nationalism this year. So he just went on there to promote the book, and he didn't actually even promote the book, might I add. So, you failed at that. Congratulations. Now, you know what? We'll ignore the fact that PragerU still has videos up on its channel of them saying the Nazis were socialists because it said so in their name, while saying that the National Socialist German Workers' Party was not a nationalist party. But you know what? I'll give this Israeli philosopher the benefit of the doubt. Let's actually read why he believes this. For nearly 400 years, the principles of national independence served as a foundation for a better, freer world. 400 years? Really? I mean, what about the British Empire? That still existed until after World War II. And mind you, PragerU has defended the British Empire before, with a British Empire apologist and neo-Confederate who wrote for the Politically Incorrect Guide series that we discussed a few episodes ago, but they still did defend it. What about the entire imperialist era? You know, us going into nations in Africa and stealing their resources, that happened all throughout the 20th century, including before World Wars I and II. I'll get into more specifics in a minute, but just know that we're not even at the point I want to talk about, and literally everything is wrong. By putting decision-making in the hands of the family, the community, and the independent nation, all three of those are very different things. You could get people to cooperate with one another, which never actually happened. You're going to look at the time where honest to God, things like slavery and Jim Crow were common. Crime had virtually no punishment. Say that's when we were at our best. Just wow. But World War I and World War II changed everything because they were giant wars. Traumatized by these catastrophic conflicts, many now seek comfort in a simplistic narrative, ceaselessly repeated, that nationalism caused 2 world wars and the Holocaust. Very misleading. No one actually claims that. But this is one of the great untruths of our time. Adolf Hitler was no nationalist. He was an imperialist. If his ambitions had been limited to ruling Germany, it would have been terrible for Germany, but French, the British, the Russians, and everyone else would have been spared a world war. Now, let's scroll up a bit. Let me read you some of the figures they consider virtues of nationalism. But it wasn't long ago that great political figures such as Woodrow Wilson, Teddy Roosevelt, Dave Ben-Gurion, Mahatma Gandhi, Ronald Reagan, and Margaret Thatcher recognized what I call the virtues of nationalism. Okay, so we'll ignore the fact that Ronald Reagan completely operated under the Truman Doctrine, meaning he was constantly doing things outside the U.S. For God's sake, his invasion of Grenada actually got us our first condemnation from the UN Human Rights Court. I'm going to focus on the first two, Wilson and Roosevelt. First off, saying that their foreign policy views were at all similar is just stupid, objectively. Theodore Roosevelt hated Woodrow Wilson's foreign policy. He famously said that after Wilson got remarried, that his foreign policy might as well have been him saying, "My wife is dead, long live my wife." What do you think that meant? But, okay. And for that matter, let's ignore the fact that Wilson was a globalist and set up the League of Nations, which was supposed to be a one-world government. That's objectively what he said he designed it as. Let's actually talk about Theodore Roosevelt's foreign policy. Now, if you do not know, Theodore Roosevelt was also an imperialist. This is to the point where, the Panama Canal? What happened was, there used to not be Panama. It used to just be Colombia. So when Colombia refused to give Theodore Roosevelt the land, what he did was he staged a coup there, and part of it, because he knew he couldn't do all of it, and created Panama. Then the person he installed there didn't really like the idea of having a canal, and the Panamanians, who had been Panamanians for 3 hours, were like, we're attached to this new identity. There's probably more complexity to that, so do not just take my word literally when it comes to that. And so he brought in a militia and threatened to shoot them if they didn't give him the land. That is not the action of a nationalist. That's the action of a globalist. Theodore Roosevelt believed America should have a place in all of the world. Now, you say that nationalism can be all sorts of things. In fact, you say, a nationalist believes that the world is governed best when nations are free to chart their own independent courses, cultivating their traditions and pursuing their interests without interference. But wait a minute, that's not what Theodore Roosevelt wanted. That's not what Ronald Reagan wanted. Reagan followed the Truman Doctrine. You know what the Truman Doctrine was? It was when if a country became socialist or was taken over by the USSR, you stage a coup there. You destabilize it. You contain communism. And this applied to even democratically elected socialist and social democratic leaders. So at best, you're just downright lying. And I don't know what at worst is at that point. Nationalism is not about racism. Well, who says? There's never been a racist nationalist? Interesting. Here's the last quote I'll read. I've been sort of going all over the place. This is another one where they just sort of deny reality. Long ago, it was discovered that the key to human freedom is to build political life out of this natural loyalty. Freedom and loyalty are not necessarily oxymorons, but can be used in such a way. People in the DPRK are very nationalistic and very loyal. They're also not very free. By putting decision making in the hands of the family, the community, and the independent nation, those mean very different things. You could get people to cooperate with one another, join the common defense, and willingly obey laws. No one would willingly obey a law. That's why they need to be placed there. If we willingly obeyed laws, we wouldn't need laws. The only alternative to this kind of community and nation-based political use force, politics is to use force to coerce obedience, or to converse obedience. I cannot talk today. But wait a minute. Isn't that what you still want, though, unless you're an anarchist? Are you an anarchist? Have you now, or have you ever been an anarchist? What? In the 20th century, communism and Nazism both sought to impose a universal vision at gunpoint. And so did the U.S. when it, destabilized a bunch of those countries. There was this whole thing in Vietnam, for instance, or in Chile, or in, I think, Argentina. Or, you know what? How about just throw a dart in somewhere in South America and you'll find the U.S. has had a foot there. They wanted to eliminate the independent nations of the world. No, Hitler believed in separating nations quite heavily. That's why he separated a whole group of people into, you see, before the concentration camps, there were ghettos. These were the rundown areas of town that you just put the Jews in. Then they started building the camps a little later. Anyway, that's it. I'm Ephrom, and good night.